Right now on a jam-packed Sports Extra, we're starting with breaking news. The Hawks have hired Quin Snyder after firing Nate McMillan earlier in the week. What does this mean for the Hawks the rest of 2023? By the way, we're back on the pitch. Atlanta United started off their 2023 campaign with a bang on Saturday night. What can we expect the rest of this season? And also, by the way, we love history on this show. A great season for Kennesaw State, and it's not done yet. We're getting you ready for the A-Sun tournament. Boy, do we have so much to talk about on this show. This is Sports Extra, and it starts right now. Yes, sir. Welcome on in, everybody. I'm Reggie Chatman. This is Sports Extra. Now, after a long All-Star break, the NBA is officially back, and the Hawks wasted no time making some noise both on and off the floor. So let's get it started and allow me to direct your attention to this. The Hawks have found their next head coach, first reported by ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski and confirmed by Maria Martin. The Hawks have reached a deal with Quin Snyder to become their next head coach. It's a 5-year deal, which includes the rest of this season. Tuesday night, the Hawks fired Nate McMillan amid a frustrating season. McMillan went 99-80 during his time leading the Hawks over portions of the last 3 seasons. Now here is Hawks GM General Manager Landry Fields from Wednesday on why his team felt like they needed to make a move heading to the final stretch of the season.
I don't just put on Nate. I absolutely believe that no matter who is in that lead role, that voice has got to be partially who they are, but also just with our players and the accountability that they must have. They've got to own their stuff. They've got to own their roles and their own professional habits, take accountability towards one another. It can't just always be on the coach, but I do believe that there was slippage. This was an area that we needed to address in order for us to continue to build out how we want to build out here in Atlanta.
Man, huge show. Good for y'all, man. Y'all got signed up on the great week to come on and talk about some good things. Paul Maharry's in the building, UGAsports.com, as well as our Jarvis Davis, locked on Atlanta. Jarvis, we'll start with you on what has been a massive day here in Atlanta. Hiring of Quin Snyder. What was your first reaction?
It was time, to be honest with you. When you're thinking about the type of coach that Quin Snyder is, it was good because he has experience, right? He has a playoffs experience as well, and he has that type of voice that the Hawks need right now, and that's a type of guy that's going to build a culture. He's going to build a type of rapport that he has with players that Nate McMillan didn't necessarily have. We know there were some gaps there when it came to Trae Young and some other players as well in that locker room. So I think Quin Snyder, it was the right fit because he has a playoff experience and he was the best available head coach in my humble opinion.
Now, the Hawks played against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Friday night. Donovan Mitchell was on that team, and he also played under Quin Snyder back in Utah. Paul, for you, he said to Trae that he's a coach that really took his game to the next level. Do you think he'd have that same impact on Trae?
I hope so, right? I mean, he's supposed to be Atlanta's star, and right now, the only thing you're hearing about him is bad things. So hopefully Quin Snyder can get in here, quiet the noise a little bit. He did a great job in Utah with Donovan Mitchell, with Rudy Gobert. He needs to do the same with Trae Young because Trae Young has the key to the city. We've given it to him, and it's time for him to really take that and run with it.
Jarvis, I'm curious as well with team chemistry. I mean, you mentioned it. There's so much that's been going on behind the scenes with this team and this roster, and of course, a lot of it's been pit on Trae, considering the fact he is the franchise player. Do you think Quin can come in and kind of silence some of that and really make things a little bit more, I guess, chill going forward?
I think so, because at the end of the day, Quin knows who he has to appease when he comes in. I hate to use that word, that verbiage, so to speak, but that's just the truth, right? You know, Paul talking about how Trae Young is, you know, he's on his 3rd coach right now, you know, as far as being in the NBA. So I think that's the thing that we're going to be looking forward to, him building a relationship with Trae, and also coming in with some new things, some new ideas, and bring it and be a new voice in the locker room that this team sorely needs.
Now, Paul, you mentioned it, or you just mentioned it, Jarvis. It's this 3rd head coach for Trae Young. He's only been in the league for 5 years now. I mean, what does that kind of say about Trae? Should we be thinking things that Coach Killer monogram, is that true?
Look, I think that the whole narrative that this trade was real from the beginning and it was fair when we traded away Luka Doncic to get Trae Young. Everybody believed it. Now it's the time that folks are starting to go away from that, and especially on your 3rd coach. This is tough. This is really difficult, and Trae Young is going to be the one that's going to catch most of the flame for this. Even though John Collins has been around almost the whole time, you know, it's Trae's team, and they brought in young pieces. This is a young, very young team. And I think they should be able to compete. They're 8th in the Western Conference right now. No reason to not make the playoffs.
Jarvis, I do want to ask you, though, about the timing of this. It's not often we see a new head coach getting hired this late in the season to help run the show for the next 5 years. I mean, what did you think about the timing of bringing him in instead of just having Joe Prunty just finish off the rest of this regular season?
I think Landry Fields is trying to strike lightning twice in the bottle. Excuse me. I think that's one of the things that, because Nate McMillan went 27-11, went to the Eastern Conference Finals back in 2021. So if you think about what the Hawks already have started to do, they're 2-0 after the All-Star break. They kind of look like a different team. And when you think about, and that was from just Joe Prunty's little minor adjustments. Yeah. Now you got an experienced head coach and Quin Snyder coming in. What adjustments can he make, and not necessarily having to try to switch everything up, because hey, you only have a certain amount of games left before the playoffs supposed to start. So he's going to make some minor adjustments, and I think that as a veteran head coach, you're going to see what he's going to be able to do right off the bat.
General Manager Landry Fields told us a little bit earlier this week that they were going to get right underway with this coaching search, and they absolutely did, getting Quin this early. I mean, it happened within a span of just 5 days. Here's what Fields had to say about what he was looking for in the next head coach.
Well, it always starts with a shared vision, and I always simplify that as being a championship caliber franchise. And that's not just with our goals, that's our day in and day out approach. Character is something that is going to be high on our list, and I it's a big, broad word, but for us, having a great degree of emotional intelligence, being able to connect not just with staff members, but also with players, is going to be high on the list.
So the question now is, does Quin fit exactly what Landry was looking for?
I hope, right? I think that's what everybody's hope is. You've got those last 20 or so games to really find out, and Quin has to find out if he fits with this team, because he's here now for 5 years. So you're looking at a guy who this is going to kind of shape around his team. You've got a young GM in Landry Fields. Kyle Korver's in the front office now. These are guys that don't have much experience. Quin does. So I think these next 21 games are going to be really, really, really pertinent on who gets to stay in Atlanta and who's getting the door for next year.
It's interesting, too. We talked to some players a little bit earlier this week, and they said the entire team was responsible for their struggles this year, and it doesn't necessarily fall on Nate. Take a listen.
Coaching can only do so much. They can, tell us what to do. They can put the plan into, give us the plan, but, we have to put it into motion and actually work. So I think a lot of it is on us, and, as a team, we have to take that accountability.
He took the hit, but I think that the whole team, it's the whole team got to take the hit. We haven't been good enough. We haven't been as good as we thought we could be, and it's on all of us.
So the question now is, does Quin fit better with what this roster may need? They need accountability. They said they needed it. And, I mean, we even heard John Collins earlier this week say that maybe Nate's style wasn't correct for them. Do you think Quin might be the right guy?
I think so, because, when you think about, you have to do the exact opposite of what the previous coach did, right? Like, button heads with the star guy, being a little bit predictable on offense from an offensive standpoint, not being able to, quote-unquote, motivate the guys to play some defense, because, hey, you got to be able to do that in order to be able to go to the playoffs and be a formidable opponent for whoever you're playing against in the particular playoffs. So I think that Quin is going to come in, he's going to get a good feel for those guys. And when you think about coming in from the outside and have a new set of eyes on things, a couple of minor tweaks. We see what Joe Prunty's been able to do in two games, and it kind of looked like a different team. So Quin Snyder, you would assume that, hey, the guy that's coming in on a long-term contract and getting paid quite a bit of money, he's going to be able to figure out and make the necessary adjustments for this team to actually look like a team that compete like they want to.
Now, we might be overacting just a little bit. It feels like Trae Young's been playing a little bit different over the last couple of games as well. And we're this deep into the show, we didn't even talk about the fact he had a buzzer beater to win a little bit earlier today. Hawks went 2-0 since firing McMillan, capped off by Sunday's 2-point win. I guess the question now is, do you think that Trae is playing a little bit more extra confidence, and do you think a move like this will help him both on the offensive and maybe actually getting a guy that can get him to play some real defense?
That's the biggest thing, the last part. He can play offense. Everybody knows that Trae is the guy on the offensive side of the ball. He can shoot from 35 feet. There's no problem. Can he guard 93 feet? And that's been Trae's kind of biggest kryptonite, if you will. So you bring in Quin Snyder. He brought Rudy Gobert multiple defensive player of the years. I'm not saying we can do that for Trae Young, but at the same time, let's get a little bit of defense in there, a little bit of, tough bulldog mentality. And this team, they're young, they're really good. You could have a quick turnaround with this team and maybe be 4th or 5th seed in the East.
You know what I think is really interesting? We've had so much to talk about, whether it's the coaching search or Trey or just the chaos around this, but we forget the fact that they actually made a trade at the deadline to bring in Saddiq Bey, who personally I feel like has added a lot to this team. 3-and-D is going to get you paid in the NBA for a long time. He had 19 in the start for John Collins on Friday, 6 more points on Sunday. Jarvis, what kind of impact do you think that he kind of brings to this roster, a team that probably needed what exactly he brings?
I think that this is going to be a good trade for Landry Fields at the trade deadline, because when you think about what John Collins is struggling with this year, right, and Saddiq Bey come in at that 4th spot, he's able to hit that wide open 3-point shot, because with the guys like DeJounte Murray, with guys like Trae Young, you're going to have open 3-point shots in that corner, and that's his sweet spot for him. He's been able to get in that corner and sit right there. As soon as they swing that ball around, he's been able to make the 3-point shot. So when you think about that right there, just specifically right there, and being able to be focused on defense and locked in on defense, I think Saddiq Bey is going to be one of those under the radar type trades where you look down the road 20 games from now and you're saying, okay, I understand why Landry Fields gave up all those second-round picks to bring him in.
He's got some size. He can obviously shoot. He can obviously defend. I mean, he brings a lot to this roster that they definitely needed heading into the back half of this schedule. All right, coming up next in this area, we're talking about Kennesaw State. We're showing them some love as the Owls are in the midst of their best season yet. We're talking all about it after the commercial break. Welcome back to Sports Extra, everybody. I'm Reggie Chatman, and soccer season is officially back in the ATL. Atlanta United started the season in a really exciting way on Saturday night. World Cup champion Thiago Almada scored 2 goals during stoppage time to lift the 5 stripes to their first win of the year. Here's United head coach Gonzalo Pineda.
The main part probably for the fans, I love that emotion when, you think you're going to lose, you're upset, and then the emotions come for them. The first goal from Thiago from outside the box, and then that last foul, and then that amazing golazo from Thiago. It was very special for us, and I hope the fans are happy with that.
All right, got the guys back with me. Paul, we're going to start with you on this one. An incredible win on Saturday. What do you think for a team that lost, you lose your scorer and Joseph Martinez. There's so many changes in the front office. How much confidence do you think a win like that will give this team going forward?
Huge. I think it's big. You have a kid in Almada who hopefully can take over the reins as your next guy, right? You had Miggy, you had Joseph. Now you need that next step. Hopefully this is the guy. And first guy ever to win a World Cup as an MLS player. Right
incredible.
Here. Yeah, so I think, hopefully he can step up and be that next guy for Atlanta United. It was fun to watch.
Jarvis, I'm curious, at what point do we start overreacting? We're like, Joseph Martinez, who it doesn't really matter. You've got Thiago, you've got Luis Araujo, who had 6 goals in the preseason, missed that PK, but at some point do we feel like, hey, it's over, it's all good, Joseph gone, Thiago in?
I don't know if I'll go that far, right? But what I am excited about is the fact that we have somebody that in Gonzalo Pineda that looks like he's going to stick around. Because when you have all these coaching changes and then you have Darren Eales walk out the door, those are the type of things that bring concern. Because we know with Tata Martino, he was a big piece of reason why they were able to win the MLS Cup, because he was making some personnel decisions along with Darren Eales. So when you have those type of guys go out the door, you look for stability from a management standpoint as far as being on the pitch and everything like that. So the fact that they have Gonzalo Pineda, you got Thiago Almada that is scoring goals in the 93rd and 99th minute in stoppage time, those are some of the things that you start to ramp up a little bit. But I'm not in the space where I say, all right, Joseph, we good now. No, I'm not there just yet.
I'll tell you, man, that environment yesterday was so much fun. Over 65,000 people in the seats inside a Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Really an environment like no other. All right, let's switch some gears now. If you haven't been paying attention to Kennesaw State men's basketball, you absolutely should be. The Owls are in the middle of their best season yet as a Division I program. For the first time ever, Kennesaw State has won the Atlantic Sun regular season title. They finished the regular season with a record of 23-8. And will be the #1 overall seed in this week's conference tournament. By also being regular season champs, the Owls will be in a postseason tournament regardless whether it's the Big Dance or in the NIT. So we're going to start with this, Paul. What can we say about the job that Amir Abdul-Rahim has really done for this roster, taking it to this next level and having a Cinderella season? Yeah,
you talk about a guy who, if you don't know about Abdul-Rahim, you need to, because he was with Georgia. He helped sign Anthony Edwards when Tom Crean was here. Once Tom Crean left, He then went on to Kennesaw State and has done a phenomenal job up there with this basketball program. Something that maybe Georgia fans are looking at going, man, what if he would have stayed around in Athens? You know, let's calm down there. This is not the SEC, but they are playing really good basketball. It would be fun to at least see one team make it into the NCAA tournament from the state of Georgia.
I know, and so, you know, maybe we could say that Kennesaw, regardless of men's or
Cinderella?
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that can really play, and their environment is incredible as well if you get a chance to go out to Kennesaw. And I'm curious, Jarvis, how big is it to be able to host a tournament in your home building?
I mean, when you think about it, what Coach Abdul Rahim has done is the fact that he got those guys to believe. And then once you get that belief system set up within your players, and those guys are going out on the court night in and night out and doing exactly what you asked them to do, and then now you're talking about hosting a tournament game in that small setting. You know it's going to be packed out. It's going to be a raucous crowd, and it's going to be something that basically everybody's going to show up for something like that. When all eyes and the TV and the lights and everything are going to be the brightest, Coach Abdul Rahim is going to have his guys ready to play.
Paul, what has maybe impressed you the most watching a Cinderella team like this do something on a stage like this? I mean, they're really set to go to the postseason regardless, but of course the big dance is their main goal.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is watching this team grow and develop. When Abdul Rahim took over, I think they had 8 wins his first year, 13 wins last year. They gave him a contract extension. They believed in him. Now you're reaping the benefit of that. I would suggest probably that Abdul Rahim is one of those coaches, and I can't remember his name from last year where they went on the big run and he got a big job out of the NCAA tournament. But Abdul Rahim's probably that next guy, I would say. Hopefully Kennesaw State makes it in, wins 1 or 2 games, and then he's off to a bigger field.
I guess my last question, Jarvis, on this is how big do you think this is for just the state of Georgia? I mean, of course, Georgia basketball has been not that great. Georgia Tech has been worse. The Hawks have kind of been in chaos. But this team's obviously playing really, really well. I mean, how big do you think it is just for the state to be able to have a team like this do its thing?
They're keeping hope alive. we need you, Kennesaw State, because nobody seems to be able to get basketball right in this state. So, hey, Coach, shout out to Coach Abdul Rahim and making sure that, hey, we have some representation in this NCAA tournament, because there's too much doggone talent in the state of Georgia for us not to be in the tournament representing. Come on,
man. Get it right, Kennesaw State, baby.
What's going on here?
We love to see. We're going to show you love here on Sports Extra if nobody else does. All right, coming up next, the Braves are back to playing games as spring training games are officially underway this last weekend. Of course, we got to talk about that wild ending to Saturday's game against the Red Sox. We're back in just 2 minutes. Welcome back to Sports Extra, everybody. Jarvis and Paul are still here to talk with me some baseball. Braves began spring training games over the weekend and were the victim to the new timing rules. It was tied at 6 at the bottom of the ninth versus the Red Sox. Braves had the bases loaded, and Cal Connolly was called for a third strike because he was still in the box not in the box, ready to go with 8 seconds left on the pitch clock. The umpire says he was not ready, so it's an automatic strike. The game ends at a 6-6 tie, and guys, I mean, this is just what baseball is now, right? Pitch clock, trying to speed up the game. Paul, what do you think?
This was wild. I love baseball, right? I played it all growing up, and it's pastime of America. This right here, I don't know if it's going to help the game grow. And what I mean by that is, are you going to bring in more fans from this, or are you going to bring in more, just petty arguments and things of that nature? Realistically, I went to a Georgia Gwinnett Stripers game July 4th. They had the pitch clock already in effect there. I loved it. It kept the game moving, but I'm also a fan of what's going on within the game. So I'm not a huge fan of this making its way to the MLB level. It'll have to grow on me.
Well, here's the deal. At the end of the day, it's still February, so none of this actually really matters. I mean, they were really driving this point across home. Now I think that we would be really unhappy if this happened in an actual game.
Could you imagine?
I mean, people would be out of their minds. So, I mean, Jarvis, this is just part of the process of just trying to get this rule implemented. Do you think that it's something that they might have to tweak, or do you think it's just something that we just have to get used to?
I think we have to tweak it, because when you think about Cal talking about how the catcher was still standing up when it was time for him to step back in the box with 8 seconds left. So I think, is that going to be something that baseball teams, they're always trying to find every edge that they possibly can get? Are they going to say tell the catcher to stand up, and try to throw the batter off, and so he can kind of get that extra strike? So I think they have to get some more clarity on the rule, and I'm glad it's happening now in spring training, and versus when you wait until the regular season it happens, and that you get that weirdness. That's when that's what you don't want. Rob Manfred don't want those problems when they happen in regular season games.
He's already got enough. He's already got 99. He doesn't want 100.
Come on now. He doesn't want it. If you just think about how mad people were on Twitter about this, this game didn't matter.
But it was 3-2, bottom of the ninth. Throw the pitch. Let's see what happens. He's either going to walk, he's going to strike out, the game's going to be over regardless. The catcher was obviously standing up. Let's keep it moving.
I think the fact that we had ties in spring training games, that's maybe the bigger thing.
Yeah, I didn't even know that happened.
Just play the game.
Yeah.
All right, anyway, of course, we're trying to look and see how Mike Soroka does, their pitcher who is returning back from injury. Paul, he's a guy that's been dealing with some hamstring issues heading into this season. We've talked about maybe him being the 5th starter. I mean, this kind of backs things up a little bit for him. Your thoughts on Mike just trying to get back to Michael Soroka back to full health?
Yeah, I was going to say he changed his name up. It's now Michael Soroka. Get it right. But no, I think he's one of those guys, if he's on, man, he's so good. But we haven't seen him in so long. The Braves have, I don't want to say moved on from him, but they're not relying on him to produce this much this year, I think.
I'm curious as well for you, Jarvis. I mean, he's a guy that maybe we hope can be that 5th guy. We actually talked about a little bit earlier this week on your show. I mean, your thoughts on just him being the guy?
I don't think you have to worry about him necessarily being the guy who I'm more concerned about is Ian Anderson. Can he get back to the guy that we knew him to be in the playoffs and being that guy you can go to in Game 7 if you need him? Thankfully, Max Fried was the guy in Game 6 that got it done in the World Series. But I think anything that you get from Michael Soroka this year is going to be cherry on top, because I think he'll be a guy that can probably come in and be a guy in your 6th part of the rotation if he gets through this hamstring tightness and kind of gets back into the flow of things, because that's all you want him to do. Get back into the groove, get back into to the guy to at least resemble what we thought he was in 2019 when he was the All-Star team. So I think those are some of the things that you have to kind of expect from him. Not necessarily being that 5th guy or being the guy. He can be a guy that can maybe jump into the 6th part of your 6th man of the rotation as the season goes along.
It's really an embarrassment of riches because we're talking about like the 5th or 6th guy.
Yeah, and he's really good. I mean, he could be a 2nd or 3rd on any team.
Exactly. So this team's loaded, and they're going to be really, really good regardless. We're really pulling strings here. Oh, my gosh. All right, coming up next, we wrap things up with our video week. It's a good one. You'll see it after this commercial break. Let's wrap things up with our video of the week. You saw it right here on 11Alive. Former Georgia Bulldog Chris Kirk won the Honda Classic over Eric Cole in a match that ended in a playoff. Paul, how cool is this, man?
Pretty cool, man. I mean, there's so many dogs in the PGA right now that Chris Kirk goes under the radar. Congrats to him.
Another DGD gets it done. How about that?
Come on now. Georgia Bulldogs are getting it done all over the place. This is Kirk's 5th win on the PGA Tour, his 1st in nearly 8 years. So congratulations to him, and congratulations to you guys for watching the show. Yeah. It was a good one. Thank you guys so much for coming on. You guys have a great week.